there. Has anything jumped out for anyone? Don't be shy.
Last week, yes. This week, no.
Okay. Well, what jumped out? What jumped out last week?
Well, we did discuss it last week, so.
All right. Well, so I have a couple of quotes, although mine came from the Island of Knowledge. I'm not sure. I started reading it and I couldn't put it down. So that was somehow the one that I got focused on. And then someone else had something about illusion.
Yeah, that was me, Wendy.
That was Wendy. Wendy, why don't we start with that? Because that's the book we're supposed to be reading, right?
Yeah.
You have that I have it handy. Would you like to read it, or?
Yeah, if you've got it handy, why don't you read the piece that I pulled out? That'd be great.
Yeah, sure. So what I've got is Sid would talk about his job at the mill, shopping for a new used Chevy, or the meaning of life with equal passion. He had the world's most developed sense of humor I had ever experienced. To him, life was now one big joke, and the joke was on us. We all lived in a kind of delusion, he would say, and then explain the delusion to us, such as the delusion that he was insecure or that I was mentally ill. So what do you see around that, Wendy?
Well, when I first started with the principles, the word illusion in the conversation with different people got me caught up a little bit, because that seemed, the word illusion, I'm a registered nurse by background. I have lived my life out of my five senses: see it, smell it, taste it, touch it, whatever, hear it.
Right.
A very practical person. And so when I was hearing the words illusion, I could get behind, and I can get behind, that my inside out, my thoughts are creating my reality. I get that. That isn't far-fetched for me to grasp. But the concept of something being illusory or an illusion was just a shade darker, and took on meaning for me. It became a thing outside, a form that I needed to push against or poke or prod. And then when somebody said, well, in our conversation in a meetup around here, saying, well, he's not saying delusion, like you're mentally ill. And I said, oh, that's good. And so then I read this and it says delusion. I'm like, there I am back again with being, mentally incompetent. These are the things that come up for me. Mentally incompetent, not dealing in quote unquote reality. And I understand we're all in separate realities. There is no one universal reality that we're all responding to, and we either get on board and respond to that reality and in sync and line up, or we don't. I mean, I understand that, but just the words, and he says it, ha ha ha, there is no such thing as mental illness. Ha ha ha, there's no such thing as, my past, and you're just being deluded by that. Well, then I make the leap to, I love my husband. Ha ha ha, I'm deluded. He's really an asshole. Like, so that's where I kind of get caught up in. It doesn't make me want to disband or throw the whole baby out with the bathwater, but it is a place that makes me, unlike my dear friend Catherine from the Great North, will say, just listen to it like music. And so maybe that was a flat note for me and sharp and seemed out of sync with the rest of the music. I don't know. But I just, I thought I would just throw in my bit.
Well, thank you. Does anyone want to give that a shot? What do we see around that?
I think we live in like both worlds, the form and the formless. So, what Sid points to is amazing. I think that's who we really are. We're spiritual beings living, having a human experience. But we live in both worlds. So I don't think it's all or one for me.
So which one is which? Is delusion the world of form, or is illusion the world of form, or is that just semantics?
I don't know. I don't really care.
So it's semantics, eh? Anyone else? What do you think?
I'm going to, just because Wendy mentioned my name, I have a tendency not to get hung up on specific words. I don't go there. When I see my mind doing that, I know that's not the direction I want to move in. But on the other hand, I also don't have a problem with the fact that I'm sometimes deluded and sometimes caught up in the illusory nature of the reality that I see. So I can find for myself where I am deluded at times, however I want to define that word. I know that things often aren't the way they seem to me. You know, the way that I'm sure of things sometimes. And then I find out later how wrong I was about my certainty. So that's kind of where I go, you know, it's like, oh, I sort of hold that lightly because I've seen the truth of it in my own life at various times. And so I don't have much pushback about Sid talking about us being deluded or caught up in the illusory nature of reality, because things aren't the way they seem. Things aren't as solid as they seem. Things aren't as real to me as I often think they are. And so I get caught up in delusion or illusion, both, and then it falls away. I have a glimpse of clarity of something beyond my own thinking in terms of this reality. So, yeah, it's in terms of not getting too caught up in the words and listening beyond the words, it's like I can hear those words and I hold them lightly. I can see where I fall under that category in terms of my own perception. So not all the time, and that's the beauty of this understanding. It's like there's this beautiful clarity that we can then fall into when we drop out of our own personal thinking. And it's, you know, I'm back to the mystery and the beauty of it all. But when I'm in my ego and I feel certain that I understand, I'm usually deluded. So, you know, again, so.
That's interesting. To me, they're sort of synonyms. I agree with you, Catherine. I don't really get caught up too much in the words that are used anymore. I used to be fairly picky about it. You know, what does he mean by delusion, and what is he? I spent a little bit more time being intellectual about it. And now it seems that unless I feel really, really great, unless I'm carrying a really good feeling with me, most of what I'm experiencing is a delusion to me. So for me, the benchmark is now, if I'm feeling really good, chances are I'm living in something that resembles what I would call a truth. And if I'm feeling really crappy, I'm butting up against trying to make something.
Yeah, I love that, because I think that's probably as close as we get in this human form. It's like Bill Pettit says, when I'm feeling lighthearted, I know I'm on track. When I lose my lightheartedness, I'm getting caught up in my thinking about things. And it's all so mysterious that I love that, Michael. It's a good litmus test for me too.
Well, I'll mention this. What I've been experimenting with over the last few years, and I don't want to get too far off. I want to come back to Wendy, but when Sid started talking about, when I discovered the principles and really heard for the first time, look for a feeling, I decided that I would give myself a very practical test. And I started paying attention to when I had a thought and the thought had a good feeling, it meant that it was actionable. So the first thing I started with was call your mother. So when I had the thought, call your mother, that generally came with a good feeling. Hey, I should call my mother. And then if I didn't act on it, then the next feeling that I got was typically not a positive one, or not something that I would term as positive. So I started to realize that we actually can use our feelings as a compass. And that guide, that looking or following a good feeling really is, or really has become for me, true north. You know, if I have the thought, I should tell my sweetheart that I love her, or I should give her a quick kiss. And I do it, I feel great. If I don't do it, then I start to ruminate about it. So it's that, to me, the feeling is a way of honing in on my next action or my continuation of action. Anyway, a little segue. Wendy, is that helpful for you, what Catherine sort of shared there?
Nothing Catherine ever says is helpful to me. Ha ha. Ha.
I'm so glad. Now I don't have to worry about trying to be helpful.
No. I can explain that more if anybody's interested. But yes, what has just transpired in the last minute is incredibly helpful. And Michael, you just said words that I will use for myself, which I don't hear too many other people using. Which I don't know if that means anything or anything. True north. That is how I can feel when I'm off my beam. I'm an alcoholic. In AA, we talk, well, let me rephrase that. Maybe I am not an alcoholic, but I don't drink because it gets me in trouble. That could be a better way of saying it if I were in a 3P environment. But what I'm trying, there's a common usage there, which is the next right thing. And so what I'm hearing you say, and I live as well, is that when I'm in a lighthearted feeling, when I'm feeling true north and I want to give my husband that I referred to as an asshole a couple of minutes ago a kiss or a hug, that feels like truth, which I'm still holding on to. Truth equals reality. And I know that's a grip that I need to be a little bit looser on. And so it could be my reality. I'm hoping that every woman that sees my husband doesn't want to give him a kiss, but I want to give him a kiss. And that's the truth. And my reality and my true north is when I'm in sync with my husband that I love dearly and deeply. Now, so, and that's not delusional, nor is it illusional. It is truth and true north. And maybe I can describe how I met him, and is that's in my past, is that something that Sid would go, ha ha ha, how delusional, right? So that's where I get caught up, but I know that that's just the Wendy part of me and my legacy for 60 years on the planet, which looks at life outside in. So I'm on a road, and I appreciate the conversation, and I'm okay. Thank you.
That's wonderful.
I just want to be the devil's advocate for a second.
Quebecer.
Yeah, of course. It goes with the territory. To navigate life from feeling, I have a problem with that. Because feelings, it's a thought, right? We just feel like feeling. And sometimes you might have the feeling that, oh, I have an idea. Should I do it or not? And then you have this bad feeling. Oh, I won't do it. But maybe that bad feeling was just only fear about doing that. And then you're not doing something because you have this fear feeling. But that fear feeling maybe it's just something to go through to be able to do whatever the idea was about. Do I make myself clear? So those feelings, navigate just, oh, good feeling, I'll do it, and the bad feeling, I don't do it. Or sometimes that bad feeling just anxiety about doing something that is out of our comfort zone. Or no, sometimes like now it's the time, income tax time, right? I don't feel like doing it. Well, let's do it, right? So yeah, so that's my 2 cents.
Can I take a stab at that, Martine?
Yeah.
So what I heard there was I have a thought around something, something that I want to take action on, and then I have a second thought that is the thought of fear.
Yeah.
Right.
But you have the feeling of fear. Yeah.
So the feeling of fear to me points me back towards examining the quality of my thinking in that moment. So it doesn't point me back to the original thought of action. It points back to the next thought, which was, I shouldn't do this because of something. So for me, there's a separation between I should call my mother and a good feeling, and the next thought is, oh, I'm too busy, or I'll do it later. So when I have that second thought of I'll do it later, I get a bit of a reminder, for me anyway, as a negative feeling. But it's not the second feeling isn't directed at the first actionable thought. It's coming from the fear thought.
Okay. No, okay.
I'm not really expressing that clearly. I don't.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Anyone? Does anyone else have any thoughts? This is why I love what's happening with this book club, because the conversations are just so open and fluid. It's so cool. Any other thoughts around that? Around Wendy's first, the quote that got us started. Dominic, can't hear you, Dom.
Sorry, I'm on. There he is. Okay. Yeah, I came in a bit later, but I caught, I think, this illusion, delusion, like all of that. I guess I wonder if in the world of form, we're creating. So we're creating with thought. Like that's kind of what it is. By the way, when I say we, you can hear the big we. You can hear self with a capital S, or you can hear self that's little. And that's so confusing because there is only one, right?
Right.
And it is both of those things. So it is both the self with the capital S manifest into form. Okay. So then into form, we create with thought. We're painting. It's like art. We take thought and we paint things. And then then they're there. And so someone says it's illusion. It's all illusion. because the only way it is in form is painted with thought. And so, oh, well, you're deluded then. Well, we all are. Because whatever you painted, like your partner, significant other is the most wonderful, loving human being. No, they're not. I see them over here. They're complete assholes. But I'm painting with thought. I'm focused on aspects of them which make them total jerks. You're painting with thought. Looking at them, and you're noticing how they care for your children and how they bring you coffee, and you're noticing those aspects that are loving, great beings. Well, I'm right. You're right. So now we're in argument. But what I'm saying is true. What you're saying is true. Well, there is, what does that even mean, true? We're only getting to see the art we've created. So I don't know. That's only the art we've created. Well, you can't call that an illusion. That's insulting. It's an illusion. Well, that's all you got. I mean, when you're in form, you don't really have anything else you can go with. You think it up, you paint it, it shows up. And if it's insulting to call it an illusion, I guess it is, but you don't have anything else you can work with.
This is Wendy.
Hey, Wendy.
Oh, Wendy.
Hi. So I agree with you, and I am being as open-handed as I can be, and open-minded, if you will, as I can be, and being in my small s self more times than not, unfortunately or fortunately, whatever you want, however you want to characterize that. And in my world, in my context, one tries to steer clear of illusions and delusions. So that's why I have a response, and how don't have the same, it doesn't feel the same or sound the same or look the same as it did a half hour ago.
Yeah.
So there's something disrespectful when, to me, when I everything is funny and laughing at, oh, look at the painting Wendy made today. She thinks her husband's nice. Ha ha ha. Poor Wendy, she's deluded. That's where I'm getting messed up, as opposed to just saying, giving myself grace, or giving you grace, or giving the world grace, to say we're all just walking each other home and doing the best we can, and it's all good. Which is yes, 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 yes. And I don't want to laugh at your experience, nor do I want you to laugh at mine.
Yeah.
This, I'm going to throw this out. So one of the quotes that I found in Island of Knowledge seems to fit here. So I'm going to read it, and we'll see if it resonates or if it fits in with our conversation now. And it's, once a person knows the game of life and knows all his games, I'll say his or her games, he or she knows everyone's games, because we are all the same source. We are one with no separation except for the illusion we have our bodies. I'll read that again. Once a person knows the game of life and knows all his own games, he knows everyone's games, because we are all the same source. We are one with no separation except for the illusion we have our bodies. So what I have under there for me as a question was, do we all play the same games? And it feels to me a little bit like this is the direction we've kind of headed in with the conversation so far. Does anyone have a thought around that? Are we all playing the same games? Is Wendy's thought about, I'll put words in your mouth, being offended by the terminology, a game that she's playing with herself? Is, my experience of my partner a game that I'm playing with myself? Does it matter?
I think it's interesting that, oh, sorry, Dominic. I just wanted to say something when Wendy was talking. And I don't know if this will be helpful, but when I read that, I didn't hear Sid's voice saying, ha, 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 ha. So I just want to point out that we have this filter. So Wendy hearing Sid's voice saying, ha, 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 I might hear someone else that way. But we have to remember that I might hear Dominic when he talks to me like that and be pissed off at him. So we have to remember that we're interpreting these words from someone who had an enlightenment experience, who's not taking this whole game as seriously as we are. It doesn't mean he's laughing at us personally. So I think it's like, the fact that I didn't hear that from Sid's voice when I read those words is a hint to me. It's a hint that I've got this filter, and, I might get pissed off at Dominic, but I didn't get pissed off at Sid. So we have to sort of tease that out and remember that I get offended. That's based on my filter. I'm not seeing it clearly, and so I can't be as lighthearted about this whole game.
Yeah, exactly, Catherine. And that's what I see in myself too. And that's why I commented on, please remember, or please get to know me. I'm a registered nurse.
Right on. Yeah.
Feeling. I am aware of certain filters that I have. Obviously, completely unaware of most of my filters. But to the degree that I am aware, that is the lens through which I'm seeing that, which is a healthy love of humanity and wanting to cure the world of their ills, right? That's where I come from. That's where I came up in the world. And so I don't want to, like if my patient says their leg hurts and I don't see anything, I don't see any redness, swelling, or bruising, I believe my patient that their leg hurts. I don't think of them as being illusional or delusional. So that's the lens through which, and I agree with you, but the verbiage is, life is a big joke, and Sid looked at it as a big joke. So whether or not he was churlish and laughing at Wendy, I doubt that. from everything I've ever read or seen. I think he was one of the most compassionate, loving. It's not even about Sid. It's mostly about these words of illusion and delusion. And let's all cop to the fact that we all know that letters put together in certain ways, ILLUSION, is just a mere human being's attempt to try to describe something that's ephemeral. So I get that. I get that.
And yeah, and can I, because I saw something, I wonder if there's this part of this confusion as well, not confusion, but part of the reaction becomes from the different levels. Like Sid talks about separate realities, but forget the separate realities for a second. Even when Wendy talks about being a nurse and then someone has cancer or has something. So there is on this physical level a reality and an empathy and a compassion for that they are suffering in this reality, by the way, and that they may have young children and they may never see them grow up. Like there's something about in this reality that relating and connecting with them in this reality is important. But the question is, do you also see that they are God? Do you also see that they are God? Because they are also that. And when you are in the game with them, then it's like we're playing Monopoly or any other game, and then I'm upset because I'm about to go bankrupt, and you're all playing with me, and then you start to make fun of me because you say, Dominic, what are you doing? Are you nuts? It's like you think you're going bankrupt. This is just a game, right? So to some degree, you can wake me up in the middle of the game. Now, that might not be the way to do it because I'm just going to get annoyed at you if you talk to me that way. But there is, and it also depends. It's sort of like, well, don't wake me up. I'm having a good time in this game. And part of the reason I'm having a good time is because I actually really believe I'm going to go bankrupt. So you're just being annoying now, telling me that this is just a game and I shouldn't, whatever. That's just annoying me, right? Because I'm enjoying this, including the fact that I'm also about to go bankrupt. Because the real me was having a really hard day, and now I'm here in this game, and I am under this illusion, but I love this. I'm enjoying this, right? Anyway, I stop at that, but there was something about these two levels that I think is also relevant here.
I think also, Sid talked about love and understanding. What everybody wants and needs is love and understanding. So there's where the empathy and the compassion comes for me in Sid's message, is that he met people where they were at with love and understanding, but his clarity meant that he didn't get sucked into the drama of their level of understanding. So I think Sid was about love and understanding is the first place I want to meet humanity at, even though I'm, and it's like, and I know it's all going to be okay. It's like, if you're stuck in the nightmare, I'm not going to laugh at you and say, ha, 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 it's just a dream. I'm going to try and offer you as much love and understanding. The nightmare feels real when we believe it. But if I know it's a nightmare, I don't have to get all caught up in it with you. I can be present with a different level of clarity and still meet you with love and understanding. I don't know.
Yeah, there's something in what you said that is you're seeing, it's like you're seeing both parts. Jesus, who's probably one of the, not necessarily the best healer we know, but he was certainly a great healer. But the thing is, he wasn't fazed. He wasn't fazed by the leprosy, the disease. In fact, he was interesting because he wasn't even fazed by the fact that you were dead. You were actually like dead with no heartbeat and all of that. And he said, well, sure, maybe you are in this game, but I know who you really are. Yeah. Who you really are is God. And you've just forgotten that. And so now you have leprosy, and that's fine. And, you know, certainly at the level of this game that there's a lot of suffering with that. But when I look at you, I don't see you as only in the game having leprosy. I see way beyond that. And then there was a power in the way that that interaction could happen. Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot. There's a lot there. Any other thoughts? Anyone?
Wendy said, oh, I'm a nurse and pain, but we know pain is so highly subjective. And 80% of the pain is you remember how much pain you had yesterday and you project how much pain you're going to have tomorrow. And for somebody, a pain that is at 2 is at 8 for somebody else. So it's highly subjective as well.
Is our truth subjective as well then? You know, what we were talking about earlier, like what I see as true might seem crazy to someone else. I'm not sure where I'm going with that.
Yeah, you guys are really, this is wonderful conversation, and I completely agree with the 2 levels that Dominic spoke to, and I could speak to that. But what I'm responding to right now is that's the troublesome spot about this entire conversation for me, and the way that it tips into the non-duality. I don't want to necessarily go there 100% right now. Whether the conversation does or not, that's beyond me. But that's the troublesome part, is there seems to be a dispassionate, inhuman, non-compassionate, loving connection that can get lost either in this conversation that we sit here on a Saturday morning when it's snowing outside here in Boston, that is an intellectual exercise on some level. But for me, as Wendy, this piece of form, this form walking around in the world, I don't go there. Typically, who am I kidding? I walk by every, homeless person that's asking for a dime in Boston too. I'm not like a bleeding heart, dear God, I'm getting involved in everybody's story. No. However, when I'm in connection with somebody and talking to somebody and in the room with somebody, I don't evaluate their pain and say, oh, come on, you got a parking ticket, boo-hoo. I'm more in line with what Catherine might be talking about, which is to say, wow, sounds like that parking ticket was tough. I've had those myself. And, would you like a cup of tea? I try to elevate the consciousness. And I did this as a nurse my whole career without ever calling it 3P. But I did that. I worked mostly with people who were dying. I was a cancer nurse and an AIDS nurse. And there were people who were clutching and panic-stricken, and their eyes were panic-stricken as they were looking at the veil, and they were about to cross over. And they were clutching at me, saying, please, 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 I'm so scared. And I would just stroke their hand. I said, you've done this before. Maybe you don't remember, but you've done this before. That little hole that you came out of, your mother's vagina, that was scary. Your little cone head got squeezed, and you didn't want to come out. And then when you went and you passed on to the other side, you said, gee, it's not so bad over here. Even though back in there I had all the food I wanted, it was warm, and I swam, and I sucked my thumb, and I did what I wanted when I wanted, and I pooped and peed, and it didn't bother me. But out here, wow. But then you kind of got used to it, and it's okay. And the light dawned, so I think that you can do this passage again. And it helped. And so that dismissive part about illusion, delusion, I recognize I'm getting caught up, and I'm copping to it here.
Right.
I'm just sharing that when people said, whoever seems dismissive of the human pain, I get very defensive and ready to save the world. The cancer nurse gets big. That's all.
I love this conversation, and I completely resonate with the whole I think in our community we've seen examples of non-duality that go often in this direction of intellectual, conceptual, all of that. And luckily the other day I kind of came across this Muji one where he said,
Oh yeah, that was
right? Like, so this Muji one who's, non-duality, but completely, he's like, don't be an idiot. Don't walk on the street and tell people they don't exist. It was a very funny, but so there are those in non-duality who've kind of figured it out. But what I love about what Wendy said is I had this actual really shocking thing a few days ago. I'm listening to an Audible book by Edith Eger called The Choice. She's a Holocaust survivor in her 90s and a psychotherapist. And so then she's talking about how there is no distinction in suffering. I'm like, oh, okay. And then she talked about in her course of her day, how she would see, a woman might come in who lost a child and the kind of suffering in that, right? And she really sort of explained like what was really horrible in this situation in terms of the physical reality that's happened. And afterwards, another person came in, and this woman who bought a very expensive Cadillac, and they got the color wrong. And this is what she was bringing to the therapy session. And instantly, as the woman's describing this, I had this judgment. It's like, screw that woman with the Cadillac. She doesn't know how good she has it. And I was a little shocked when Edith Eger was talking about it, and she said, to me, it's equal. And so she does the same amount of listening and compassion. And see, the woman, and as she went on, she described that woman with the Cadillac where the color was wrong, it was a pattern in her life that she never gets what she wants. She's always disappointed, and others have disappointed her, and it started even as a child and whatever. Anyway, by the end of it, I'm nearly in tears for this woman. and it was shocking. But that again, in form, we have, like, Wendy's point, you make a judgment or you're dismissive. Oh, come on, grow up. Don't you see all that you've got around you? You think the color is such a big deal. But if you really can kind of connect them, it's kind of like listen, just really listen and get it and empathize. So that's what that reminded me when you said that, Wendy. Thank you.
Sure.
These are great. What a wonderful way to spend a Saturday morning, or a little bit of time on a Saturday morning. I've got one other quote, and we'll see what springs from that. No thought is the jamming of negative thoughts before they reach the conscious level. If you haven't enough power to stop these negative thoughts, your life is completely out of control. Though no thought is the jamming of negative thoughts before they reach the conscious level, if you haven't enough power to stop these negative thoughts, your life is completely out of control. What do we see there? No takers on that one?
This one doesn't resonate for me. I don't, that whole terminology, yeah, I can't find that in my own experience, which is okay. It's like I see more how I'm noticing the negative thought stream, and it has less impact on how I live my daily life. I don't take it as seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And then the place of no thought for me is that place that I fall into when Dick and Bettinger says, like, you know, you fall out of your conceptual mind and you fall into this beautiful non-conceptual divine mind, or whatever, however we want to call it. And so this idea of jamming the negative thoughts, that's interesting. I don't think I can find that in me, or having the power to, for me, it's discernment more than the doing. So it's like, I would probably just sort of go past that and not think about it very much, because when I look in my own experience, I don't think I can, I guess I don't resonate or find that. It would be interesting to hear if anybody else does.
I see it as just a similar metaphor. It's just another metaphor for pointing to the same thing. You know, that's what's funny about all of this is it's all really simple, and we're just trying to find metaphors to explain something that can't really be explained, but we feel it. We have glimpses of feeling it, and so we all use these metaphors in the best way that we can, and sometimes they're going to hit us and sometimes they don't, you know.
Yeah, that's
sometimes
why if it doesn't resonate, I just let it go.
Yeah, you just let it go.
And move
Exactly.
on.
Yeah. And for this one, it seems kind of similar to me, where I've heard, you know, like thought flowing through a pipe, or thought being a river, a flowing river. And when I have a thought or a particular feeling in the moment that's bothering me, and I start obsessing over it and paying attention to it and giving it life, it kind of creates a block on the river or a clog in the pipe. And so the flow of life stops, and the flow of wisdom and new fresh thinking kind of gets clogged in it. But any moment I get a glimpse or a memory or a realization again of the kind of illusory nature of thought in the moment, then it somehow breaks up that dam, or it somehow breaks up that clog in the pipe, and it allows that to come through, and it brings me back to the flow of life again.
Yeah, I agree with that. Am I misreading this, though? It's like he's saying the opposite to me, though, that if you have enough power, you can jam up the negative thoughts.
Oh, well, I was thinking
right?
that, yeah, and what I think he means by power is not the ability to change it, but just having the awareness. So if I don't have the awareness of this understanding in some form, I'm going to continue to get caught up in it until somehow my mind gets off of it.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, I now have more understanding. When I see clogged thought, when I feel yucky, I know I'm kind of clogged up in the moment. And so I have a little bit more awareness to not dig into it, you know, and to, just get my mind off of it, or whatever occurs to me in the moment. That's where I got of it anyway.
Yeah, but I think it's unconscious. I think because by the time we're aware of our thoughts, it went through filters. So that's why subconscious mind goes to 40 billion bits per second, and conscious mind is only 40 to 1,000. By the time we're aware of it, but everything is unconscious. And if we look at like fibromyalgia, it's just repressed anger. And when you look at a person with fibromyalgia, they don't look angry, right? But it's just repressed. And it comes up as fibromyalgia. So I don't think nobody can repress consciously something that we're aware or we're not aware of those thoughts. And if you're not aware, like most people, me included, it comes up, like you said, Janelle, that it plugs the pipes. Well, yes, it comes up as disease.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
It could be that this. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, it could be that this is where the feeling is important, because because the two are linked, right? So we are feeling thought, then yeah, I'm just trying to think about, if I'm not feeling something, then I'm not thinking it. Like, I don't know. I don't think it can be any other way, right? So if I'm with my wife and I'm feeling love, then the thinking that's going on is one of love and connection and good stuff, I guess, right? If I'm with my wife and I'm feeling anger or upset, whether or not I know what I'm thinking, like you could say, well, my thought is, it's subconscious, right? But the fact that I'm with her and angry, whether or not, like, there has to be thought there. And so it's active. The way I know it's active is because I'm feeling something. Because if otherwise it's not active, right? So whatever those loving thoughts are, those are not active right now. There's something else that's active. I don't know. I thought of that as to what Martine said.
What I find really interesting about the last few minutes here is that we all resonate with different things. What Wendy didn't resonate with was, Sid's illusion conversation, or the words that he used there. And for Catherine, the no thought is jamming didn't resonate. So we are the beauty of the 3P to me is just as a mechanism, it allows us to create these truths for our individual truths that just are constantly changing. They're constantly morphing within a structure, like a small T individual truth, working within this framework of a large T truth, which is perhaps that we are all God, or maybe just how the system itself works. So it's been neat just hearing where people resonate and where people don't resonate. I find that fascinating. And to me, that speaks to some level of individuality that we all are imbued with in the world of form. And that it's amazing that we have this individuality.
Yes, Michael. Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
That reminds me too, of Sid saying there's no end to the levels of consciousness, which means there's no end to the beauty that we'll continue to discover in this life. There's no end to it. So no matter where we are in our understanding, the beauty is just going to keep increasing as our understanding increases. So that's so incredibly helpful for me too. It's okay wherever we're at, because there's no end to the beauty that we'll discover in this life.
So are there, I just throw this out, are there levels of consciousness? Because I know some in the community say there are no levels of consciousness. And
it says it's a level of consciousness is just a level of understanding. So I certainly feel like my understanding goes up and down. So, I certainly seem to have, at different times in my life, different levels of understanding about what's going on here. Now, if I interchange that with consciousness, I can go with it.
Do you think that, this is something I asked Jack early on, so like he and I were chatting earlier on, we have these levels of consciousness, and we think about sort of clicking up a level of consciousness, our understanding improves. Is it possible to drop down from a level of understanding? Mm-hmm. Can we increase our level? So can we come to a deeper awareness and then lose that deeper awareness? Or does it just fluctuate does our in and out just fluctuate at a higher level of understanding now?
Oh, I think you can drop right down to the basement.
Right.
Oh yeah, I think you can. And but the beauty for me is, my experience is that I say, look at me, I'm here in the basement. I'm just going to wait it out. Whereas before, when I was in the basement, I said, this sucks. I live in a basement.
Oh, good one. Yeah. I go to the basement too. I just don't stay there as long anymore.
Exactly. I don't stay there as long, maybe, but that's not willful on my part.
No.
The willfulness, or the ability for me to exert my human mind to it is to look around and say, look at me, I'm feeling miserable in the basement, but I know that this is not permanent. Whereas before, I might say, my life sucks and it's never going to be better than this.
Yeah, we just forget sometimes. We just have to remember.
Yeah, I really love the idea of forgetting and remembering. To me, that terminology works really, really well for me when I'm caught. I've just forgotten. I wonder though.
Yeah, me too.
When we've forgotten, how can we know? Like if we're down in the basement, the only reason we're down in the basement is because we've forgotten. So how can we know and have forgotten at the same time?
Well,
That's the illusion.
You're a dog.
Or is that the delusion?
There you go. Well, if I just got whatever, my leg broken, I just fell down the stairs, I might have a pity party for myself and say, how am I going to get to work next week? How am I going to go to my daughter's graduation? How am I going to, I might be in the basement and then just say, you know what, it'll all be all right. You'll figure it out. It's going to be good. But I think we're all entitled to go to the basement. It's not a matter of forgetting. There's a matter of my leg hurts and I'm in an emergency room all day for the rest of the day. And I'm thinking about next week's plans and things I have to do. That's okay to be in the basement, but I can also know that this too shall pass. I've lived through other medical situations before, or what, you know what I mean? We can go on and on with analogies, but I think it's okay to be in the basement.
Well, and I'm not suggesting in any way that it's not okay and that fluctuation doesn't exist. I wonder sometimes how we can both be aware of being in the basement, which to me, as soon as your awareness shifts again, you're out of it. So to me, it's confusing how we can both be in the basement and be aware of the fact that we're in the basement, because as soon as we're aware that we're in the basement, we're no longer in the basement. Mm-hmm. So that's thoughts that rattle around in my noggin around that. But Janelle, there we go.
Yeah, for me, all of my life, before I came across the principles understanding, there was a certain experience of life it was up to me. And I was broken in some way and I needed to be fixed. And so everything was from that framework. I had to do things to try to get better, or it was me alone trying to figure out how to do the world, And then once I had my insight with the 3 principles, now, even though I still feel a lot of the same feelings, I'll still get depressed, I still get frustrated, I still get jealous or envious or compare, I'd still judge, I still do all those experiences, but I've moved up a level of consciousness in the sense that there is at least a part of me that knows that this is not the truth, that I am not broken, that there's nothing wrong with me. And even though I feel really shitty sometimes, this awareness it gives you something to fall back on. So it's not that the feelings are just as strong. And in some cases, I think they're even stronger in some way. But it's like I've got a distance from them. I get to watch myself going into my craziness, instead of before just being in it and being broken and having to get out of it. Now I'm in it. I don't particularly like it. I still want to get out of it a lot of the time, but I get to watch myself doing it in a way. I have a distance from that experience. And that to me is a level of consciousness and it's different from what everything in my life before I saw one way. And now I've got this other level where I can see things a little bit wider. I can see things with more perspective. And I think that just keeps on growing, you know?
I think that's beautiful, Janelle.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
I mean, my God, if I had to go back and live my life though, I mean, I used to be so depressed all the time. And basically I just got to a point where I gave up. I said, I am fucked up. I cannot fix myself anymore. Nothing's working. And I just gave up. I just surrendered. And I'm sure that in that surrender, that's why I was suddenly allowed to see something, you know. But what a difference in my life in having this understanding that there's so much more grace to all of the suffering that I still give myself, you know.
Grace. Love that word, grace. Yeah, that's what's popping into my head as we're having this conversation. Is that
it's grace? It is grace, absolute grace.
I wonder too. What this made me think of is you're in a dark room with the lights out, and you're afraid, right? You're afraid of something, right? And then the lights come on, and you realize, oh, there's nothing in here. It's just a table and whatever, right? It's really easy. It's simple. But to what Wendy and Michael were saying, then the lights go out, and I'm starting to get scared. I'm starting to get nervous. I'm starting to freak out again. The lights come back on, and I see, yeah, nothing's changed. It's all okay. So we're kind of the question is, in any moment, am I, what's happening? Like, so, but I've been enlightened. How come I'm not now? How come I'm in the basement again? Right. Well, but I am. And maybe I could be in that room, and maybe over time, I don't know, but when the lights go out, I'm maybe not as scared as I was before.
That's it.
And so something starts to happen, or maybe it's shifting, but it doesn't mean that I'm silly. How come I'm getting scared again? This is just silly. Well, I don't know, but you're back in the basement. You just are, right?
Something that I'm so bad at remembering where I hear bits and pieces from, but it all kind of goes in and amalgamates with my own thinking. But someone talked, the measure of your grounding is the speed with which you come back to knowing, right? Like you get thrown out of it, and then how long does it take you to come back? And that seems to me to be a level of consciousness thing, like how quickly you come back to your grounding, or how quickly you come back to remembering that everything is okay.
Oh, that's helpful, because that is actually it. And I watched this happen in coaching, right? Because when I did Super Coach Academy, and I was kind of like, okay, yeah, it's all about grounding and all of that. And but it is with clients where, to what degree do I think they have a real problem, right? Oh my God, they have this real problem that, the company is restructuring and their job's at risk. Like, this is a real problem. So and then as my grounding deepens and deepens, and this is, I've watched over time, I'm less freaked out. Right. Like, now they tell me something, or that they've been fired, or, whatever happened, and I'm less freaked out about it. Now, to Wendy's comment, maybe from the very beginning, you better be careful the way you start to interact with them, because, as a coach, you kind of, it's, so you were fired. That's not a big deal. You better be careful, right? Because the whole coaching is based on the connection and the relationship. But my own grounding is, maybe what I've noticed is I'm less freaked out. And so maybe I can be more helpful.
Beauty.
I love that, because that speaks to seeing what's within that doesn't get broken, that is eternal. that is resilient in the other person when they can't see it themselves.
Well, I think that speaks precisely to the point of where we started, which is how Sid sees it all as a game. Like, he just doesn't see you as broken. He doesn't see you as having a problem. For him, it's like, man, you're pure energy. You are pure love. There cannot be a problem. And I think it's very difficult to wrap your head around that. You know, for us lay people, you know, well, what do you mean there's no problem? I want this to be a problem. It's my problem. Anyway.
Well, that by the way, that's when we see, like, I remember being so impressed, like Michael Neal, he would talk about these stories and he'd say, you know, yeah, so I met with this person and then their child had died or something. Well, that was it. The minute he said that, I'm freaked, right? Like, it's like, okay, what do you do with that, right? But Michael was less freaked. Mm-hmm. So he was in a way better, like, as a coach, his grounding way more solid. He could continue in the conversation. For me, I would just be not helpful.
George Prensky said something that's when somebody comes, it's not my problem. And if they don't see the light, it's still not my problem.
That's hard, but it's so true.
There's a woman named Natalie Sudman who had a near-death experience, and I won't go into this, but she got blown up in Iraq by a roadside bomb and had lots of physical problems. But she describes, you know, this out-of-body experience where her perspective went from this to universal. And she goes into an amazing, it's called The Application of Impossible Things. If anyone's interested in having your perspective opened up, it's a small book, get it. It was an engineer. She's very practically minded, but her perspective is so vast. I talked to her on the telephone. She said to me, Kathy, I have to be careful because I know we're eternal now. I was blown up by a bomb. I went into a realm where I, with other beings, decided what injuries I would have. And when I came back, I had them so that I could play out this lifetime learning the things I wanted to learn. And she said, it's like this for me. When something happens, it's like when your child comes to you and the head is fallen off of their doll. To them, they are devastated. You know that the head's just fallen off of their doll. It's not that serious. But you don't say to your child who's sobbing and in despair, oh, you hug them. You love them. You tell them it's going to be okay. She said, but I know the head's just fallen off the doll no matter what's going on in people's lives, because her perspective, she knows we're eternal. She knows that this never ends. That it's, you know, do you get my point? It's like her perspective is so vast that she said, my sense of humor is totally inappropriate to most human beings now, because so she's still compassionate, but she can't take it as seriously because she got blown up by a bomb and went to different places and then came back. So you've got to come back and learn. So it's still about the connecting to people where they're at, you know, with compassion and love, because they're caught in the dream still, and it's very real to them. So
that, and I laugh because that's the same thing that, I mean, when you hear about Byron Katie, the whole thing, like it's kind of inappropriate and it's like, you know, someone saying, oh, how's your mother? She's great. Oh, really? Where is she? Yeah, she died last week. Right? Like, it's just so inappropriate, right? Byron Katie was like, kind of like, had this enlightenment experience and all of a sudden was an alien. I mean, how else do you say it? She was an alien for a while until she kind of found her way back to being able to be human and speaking. But
true. Yeah, exactly.
What's the name of the book again?
Yeah, I asked in the chat. Can you write it in the chat?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then I will. I'll put it onto the group page as well. And then, unfortunately, I have to wrap things up. I gotta run. This sucks. This was This is brilliant. I'm really quite thankful to everyone for embracing this, because when I set off on this, I really had no idea what I was doing and no idea what was going to come of it. And it seems to be doing. I mean, I couldn't have scripted this any better. You know, a free flow of conversation that's respectful and humorous, and we get to curse a little bit. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. So thank you all very, very much for that. Any last thoughts that we can put into a 1 minute, a 60-second spot from anyone?
Thank you, Michael, for your leadership in all of this. And you are like amazing. I mean, forget the book club, just watching you over the past, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, yeah, it's just amazing what you're putting together. And that really is a demonstration of kind of like going in a direction and just creating and creating and creating. It's like, I don't know. It's amazing.
Well, thank you very much, Dominic. That's very kind.
It's like you get in a flow. It's like you could see the momentum happening here, Michael, because you were pointed in this direction. And then the universe just sort of brings things together, and you're going with the flow, and we get to watch that momentum build. It's really awesome. So, thank you.
Yeah. Well, hopefully there'll be some entertaining moments for you all to watch on this journey. Anyway.
You can count on me to be there to make fun of you all the way through.
Well, I wouldn't want it any other way, Dominic. All right.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna click stop. So if we want to say a quick goodbye, everyone. Thank you so much. We'll see you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Love you all. Jesse Lynn, I hope you feel better or continue to feel better.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye. Say hi to Finley.
Everyone.
Yeah, will do. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.